When we think of the British royal family, images of grand palaces, ceremonial parades, and global diplomacy often come to mind. But behind the splendor lies a darker, often overlooked chapter of history, one in which the monarchy played a direct role in the system of slavery that helped build Britain's empire and economy. As calls for historical accountability grow louder, especially from the Caribbean and African diaspora, it's time to confront the truth. The British royal family was not just a passive bystander to the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. They were in many ways active participants, beneficiaries, and symbols of a brutal global system that enriched the empire at the cost of millions of African lives. Britain's formal entry into the transatlantic slave trade can be traced back to the 17th century, and the monarchy was there at the very start. In 1660, King Charles II granted a charter to the Royal African Company, a corporation established to trade in gold, ivory, and enslaved Africans. The company's governor was James, Duke of York, who later became King James II. Under his leadership, the Royal African Company transported an estimated 100,000 to 150,000 enslaved Africans to the Americas, branding many with the company's initials, RAC, seared into their flesh with hot irons. The monarchy didn't just endorse this, they profited from it. The Royal African Company built Britain's dominance in the transatlantic slave trade, establishing outposts and forts along the West African coast. The company's profits flowed into royal coffers. The influence of the monarchy helped normalize and expand the trade in human beings across the empire. The money generated from slavery fueled the rise of Britain as a global power and funded many of the institutions still in place today. Some of the profits made their way directly to the royal household in the form of shares, gifts, and land grants. Royals were not slave traders themselves, but they were shareholders, stakeholders, and figureheads of the system, a system of racism and violence. This wealth helped fund royal estates, military campaigns, and the royal lifestyle. Stately homes and cultural institutions that still receive royal patronage were built or expanded with wealth connected to colonial slavery and exploitation. The monarchy's social and symbolic power helped legitimize the entire system. Throughout the 18th and early 19th centuries, the British Empire grew alongside the reach of slavery. Royal governors ruled over colonies where slavery was law. In the Caribbean, hundreds of thousands of enslaved Africans labored on sugar plantations, a trade that filled the empire's coffers and sweetened tea tables back home. The Crown's silence was deafening, even as resistance and rebellion rocked the colonies, like Tacky's Rebellion in Jamaica in 1760 or the Demerara Rebellion in British Guiana in 1823, the monarchy did not speak out. Their representatives often led the suppression of these uprisings. When Britain finally abolished slavery in 1833, the monarchy was still in a position to shape how that abolition played out. The law ended slavery in most of the empire, but not without a price. The government paid £20 million, which is over £17 billion in today's money, in compensation not to the formerly enslaved, but to slave owners who had lost their so-called property. Some of these payouts went to aristocratic families connected to the crown. Others went to institutions that are still tied to the royal family today. This system ensured that the financial losses of elite families were cushioned, while the formerly enslaved received nothing, left to face poverty, racial discrimination, and systemic inequality that, unfortunately, continues today. For much of the 20th century, the royal family remained largely silent on Britain's role in slavery and colonialism. As independence movements swept across the Caribbean, Africa, and Asia, the monarchy adapted, but rarely reflected publicly on its historical legacy. That silence began to break only recently. In 2023, King Charles III expressed support for a research project into the monarchy's historical links to slavery, saying it was time to deepen our understanding. The statement was cautiously welcomed, but critics pointed out that supporting research isn't the same as actually taking responsibility. In the same year, a royal document from 1689 was uncovered, showing King William III's investment in the Royal African Company. It made clear that slavery wasn't some distant, abstract institution. It was, in fact, tied directly to the crown. There have also been calls, particularly from Caribbean nations like Barbados and Jamaica, for the royal family to formally apologize for slavery and to consider reparations. While King Charles and Prince William have both expressed sorrow or regret, no formal apology has ever been given. And there's been no financial or institutional restitution. The royal family today plays a symbolic and diplomatic role. But symbols matter. For many across Britain and the Commonwealth, the monarchy represents not just continuity and tradition, but also a legacy of racial injustice and colonial violence. Understanding the royal family's historical ties to slavery isn't about erasing history. It's about acknowledging it honestly. It's about recognizing that the wealth, power, and prestige enjoyed by the monarchy were built in part on the suffering of millions of African people. It's about asking what comes next. Should the crown take steps toward meaningful reconciliation? Should institutions linked to royal patronage face public scrutiny for their origins in slavery? And can there be a future monarchy that is honest about its past? The story of Britain's royal family is incomplete without confronting its ties to slavery. It's not just a historical footnote, it's a foundational truth. Facing it requires more than symbolic gestures. It demands real dialogue, real reflection, and perhaps real redress. As voices from across the Commonwealth continue to speak up, we all have an important role to play in keeping these conversations alive. History isn't behind us, it's all around us. And it's only by facing it head-on that we can hope to build something better. If you are interested in this content, why not follow me and subscribe? I will be examining the truth about history, not just slavery, but lots of other topics that have been misrepresented or covered up in the past. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about the video. Thank you for watching.